It has been a little over a month since I last recorded, and if you've been wondering where I've been, the answer is pretty simple. I had to take a step back for my mental health. Sometimes life asks you to slow down whether you want to or not, and this was one of those times. But during that space, I kept coming back to Harry Potter. I found myself rereading the books, rewatching the films, and letting that world keep me grounded in a season where I needed something familiar, something steady, something that could still speak to me in new ways. And honestly, it did speak to me in many new ways. The more I sat with it, the more eye opening it became. There's so much in the story that goes beyond magic, beyond nostalgia, beyond childhood comfort. There is mythology here. There is psychology here. There is a whole conversation about growth, suffering, identity, and becoming that I think is worth having. So, in this episode, I want to share a few thoughts about all that with you. So, yes, finally, a new episode. Oh, and if you're new here, I'm Raven from the 515. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sticking with me even though I left you. Thank you for holding my hand from afar during these quiet seasons. I promise I won't be gone that long again anytime soon. And even better, after this one, I've got a few episodes already recorded that never made it live, so there is still plenty more coming your way. I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. What if Harry Potter isn't really a story about magic at all, but a story about what it means to become a person? That's the part that keeps pulling me back to it. Because yes, there are spells and creatures and wands and a school hidden from ordinary sight, but beneath all of that, it's a much older structure, one that shows up in myths, religions, legends, and the stories we keep telling each other when we are trying to explain suffering, growth, and meaning. Harry's story works because it follows the shape of the hero's journey. It begins in deprivation, moves through confrontation, and ends with return. And that journey is not just about adventure. It is about psychological formation. It is about what happens when a human being is forced to confront chaos and either collapses under it or becomes capable of carrying meaning through it. Harry begins in the ordinary world, but it is not ordinary in any healthy sense. It is a false world. It is a world of emotional starvation, humiliation, and distortion. He lives in a house where his real identity is denied. His needs are inconvenient, and his very existence is treated like a disruption. That matters because every hero's journey begins with a wound in the order of things. There's always some rupture that makes the old life impossible to continue. The hero is not chosen because life is easy. The hero is chosen because life is broken in a way that demands transformation. And that's why Harry matters so much to people. He is not a fantasy of perfection. He is a fantasy of survival becoming meaning. The call to adventure is the moment reality interrupts the lie. For Harry, that call comes through the letter, through the revelation that the world he was forced to live in is not the whole world, and through the shock of being named as someone more than the story he was given. Whoa, it's a lot. That is a psychological event. but it's also a narrative one. It is what happens when a person discovers that the identity imposed on them by family, trauma, shame, or fear is not identical to the truth. The call is disruptive because it destroys the old map. You can't stay innocent once the truth has spoken. But the call is never comfortable. In myth, the hero usually resists every time. That's because the unknown is terrifying. We cling to familiar misery because at least it is familiar. Even dysfunction can feel stable when it has been our environment for long enough. Harry doesn't get to choose whether the world changes around him. He gets pulled across the threshold, whether he is ready or not. And that's true for so many of us. The threshold moment in life is often not a grand decision. It's the moment when denial stops working. It's the moment when the old story can't contain the facts anymore. Once Harry crosses that threshold, he enters a new reality. But it is not safe. In mythic terms, this is where the trials begin. In psychological terms, this is where development begins under pressure. Every challenge Harry faces is not just a plot event. It is a test of perception, courage, discipline, and trust. He learns that the world is bigger, older, and more dangerous than he knew. He learns that there are forces that want him confused, isolated, and afraid. And he learns that power without wisdom can destroy you just as quickly as vulnerability can. That is one reason the story resonates so deeply with adults. This is not just a children's story. Because growing up, if we do it honestly, it is not the same as becoming comfortable, right? It is learning how to navigate complexity without collapsing into fantasy or despair. Harry's trials are mythic, yes, but they mirror real life in a very psychological way. We all face our own versions of the forbidden forest, the chamber, the mirror, the dragon, the betrayal, the loss. We all have to confront the parts of life that cannot be solved by wishful thinking. And then there is the abyss. Every real hero's journey includes descent. There is no transformation without a confrontation with death, limitation, grief, or annihilation. That is the point where the old self can no longer survive in its previous form. In Harry's case, the abyss is not only literal danger, it is the repeated encounter with mortality, abandonment, and sacrifice. He has to face the reality that love can cost something, that truth can isolate you, that carrying meaning may require suffering, that the self he thought he was must be broken before it can mature. This is where the story becomes deeply psychological, because the abyss is not just where you are afraid. It is where your illusions die. It is where the fantasy that someone else will do the work for you falls apart. It is where you realize that no authority figure, no parent, no institution, and no miracle can fully spare you from the burden of becoming conscious. That is a harsh truth, but it is also a liberating one. Because the moment you stop expecting the world to hand you wholeness, you begin to build it. That's why mentors matter so much in stories like this. Dumbledore, Hagrid, Sirius, Lupin, and even the people who fail Harry in various ways all function as different parts of the psychic landscape. A mentor in myth is not just a helpful adult. The mentor is the figure who helps the hero interpret reality. Sometimes they offer wisdom. Sometimes they offer a challenge. Sometimes they are flawed. And their flaws matter because the hero cannot build a mature self on idealization alone. In a deeper sense, the hero has to learn that wisdom is not the same thing as perfection. And that's actually a huge part of why Harry Potter is such a powerful story for people. For people who have lived through toxic relationships or dysfunctional family systems. Many of us are taught to confuse control with care, performance with worth, and survival with identity. The hero's journey says something different. It says that life is not about staying safe inside a small, false version of yourself. It is about becoming large enough to tell the truth. It is about developing the inner strength to face what is real without needing to distort it. That is also why the chosen family theme lands so hard too, because the return from the abyss is not just about internal change. It is about relationship. A hero does not come back to the world as the same person. They come back able to belong differently. That is the return. Not a return to innocence, but a return with knowledge. Not a return to comfort, but a return with capacity. The hero brings something back that others need. In Harry's case, he brings courage, memory, loyalty, and the willingness to face what everyone else wants to avoid. And maybe that is where the story becomes most moving, because Harry's real victory is not just defeating evil. It is becoming someone who can bear reality without being destroyed by it. He learns how to carry grief without being ruled by it. He learns how to love without needing to possess. He learns how to act even when he is afraid. He becomes a person who can move through chaos and still orient toward truth. That is why the hero's journey still matters. Not because it flatters us, because it really tells us what growth actually costs. We like stories where the hero is secretly special, and that part is fun. But the deeper truth is more demanding. The hero is not just the one with hidden power. The hero is the one who is willing to undergo transformation, the one who can stand at the threshold between the known and the unknown and keep going. The one who does not confuse pain with identity. The one who learns that meaning is not found by avoiding suffering, but by meeting it with courage and responsibility. And that's what makes Harry Potter so enduring. Harry is not just a child wizard. He is a mythic image of the self under pressure. He shows us what it looks like to start in brokenness, pass through the fire, and return with something that could help others survive too. So when I think about Harry now, I don't just think about a boy at Hogwarts. I think about the human task underneath the story. The task of leaving the false world. The task of facing the dragon. The task of surviving the descent. The task of returning changed. And maybe that is the real magic. Not the wand, not the spell, not me, not Hermione, you. But the possibility that suffering does not have to be the end of the story.